I'm Leigh Brown. This is Real Talk with Leigh Brown. And as y'all know, I'm not a super fan of AI, but I'm learning where I can let it be helpful. So today I've brought on my friend Tim Burrell from Raleigh, North Carolina, and he's going to talk about AI as it relates to negotiating. So if you're not in real estate, this is still helpful information. If you're not interested in negotiating, this is still helpful information. So enjoy the conversation, and I'll see you on the other side. Well, tell me what's going on in Tim Burrell's world.
Life is good. Life is good. I'm continuing my mission basically to try and improve the negotiating talents of realtors. You know, this thing I started years ago was figuring that one of the things that really needs to improve is the way that we negotiate with each other. And so I've been working on that a fair amount. Visualize back when you and I started, you know, your initial classes that you took to get your license. How much training did you have on negotiating at that stage?
None. They don't give you any in pre-licensing.
Right. And so as a result, you end up with realtors that think that what they're supposed to do is do battle. Instead, what we're supposed to do is, you know, we have a real special situation that we want the same thing. We'd like the sale to close. We'd like both parties to be happy. And so collaborating is a wonderful thing. And if we can figure out how to get everything we really need for our clients, but also make it smooth, that's the whole trick. So yeah, that's what I'm doing mostly. Now, still selling some real estate, acting as a broker. I'm a general contractor. I fix and flip things. Out in California, I'm still licensed as an attorney, but I really don't practice anymore.
So are you not in Raleigh anymore?
I'm in Raleigh. Yeah, I live in Wake Forest.
Okay.
Yeah, with RE/MAX United.
All right, so tell my audience a little bit about you. You're in Raleigh. You're a broker with your office. How many years have you been around real estate? What, 36, 37 now?
Yeah, it's only 45, so I'm just getting started.
Me.
Yeah, I started in California, similar to you, a multi-generational realtor. My mother was a realtor. My father was a contractor. Moved here 29 years ago and, started selling some real estate. Been enjoying that, really enjoying the Raleigh area. The quality of people here is just phenomenal. And then I got into, looking around and seeing what else I could do to, help out a little bit. Started writing books on negotiating. But the thing I found out about realtors and about all human beings, they will do things to avoid pain much more than they will do things to improve themselves.
100%.
So I found that if I offer my courses as continuing education, in other words, the pain they have to avoid, they will take them. And if instead you just offer them as this is going to make you better, some of them will take them. But I'm now in the process of getting, I've got the continuing education classes approved in North Carolina and Virginia. I'm working on the rest of the 50 states. And one of these days, I'm going to dramatically affect, the quality of negotiation between realtors, and we're going to have a lot happier clients. And NAR samples our clients. And one of the biggest things they expect is that realtors are going to be highly trained in negotiations. And one of the biggest disappointments they have is that realtors are not highly trained in negotiating. And so that's my mission.
And so for those of y'all that are consumers who are just watching this because you're interested in it, NAR is the National Association of Realtors. That's our trade association. And I forgot to give Tim the warning about acronyms because in real estate, we fall into that trap all the time.
Good point.
And for those of you that are in real estate and you want to know what that data is he's talking about, every year, the National Association of Realtors does really good research work. So it's one of the things your dues dollars pay for. And it's called the Profile of Home Buyers and Sellers, which you can download at nar.realtor. Now, if you're a regular person, you don't have access to that, but journalists, you can get access to it, but so can members. And it is important because, Tim, to your point, what the public wants is what we as professionals should be making an effort to provide. And they are always looking for higher levels of education from their professional. They want better negotiating. They want great communication. They sometimes mention marketing, but that's not the top thing that the public wants, but it's the top thing that agents get focused on because if you step away from the data, you might forget these points. And so when you look at, for example, let's just look at the Raleigh market. In the 29 years that you've been there, the market has changed dramatically. The demographics have changed. The technology in real estate has changed. What have you seen change in the negotiating space as we've gone from telephone to text and Facebook message?
And, and this has been dramatic. And frankly, from the very beginning, a large amount of our negotiation was actually face to face. In the very early days, you could insist that you could sit down with the listener, with the seller, and present your offer directly to the seller. That never happens anymore.
No, it doesn't. And I don't think it was bad when we did it that way. And for those of y'all that are just bowed up at home, the agent was there. I mean, I would be talking to Mr. and Mrs. Seller plus their agent saying, here is what my buyers have crafted. Here is what we would like to present. It wasn't as scary as people might think, but I find that there's a allergy to being around people in person these days, Tim.
No, you're exactly right. A whole bunch of people are so used to staring at a screen and not dealing. And the thing that was wonderful about face-to-face is you could actually develop some rapport with the people and find out what's important to them,
Right.
and then solve their problems. Because, negotiating basically is communal puzzle working. You're putting the puzzle together and you're solving the problem. So if you could find out, and so many people in negotiating, they focus on one thing, which is the price. There are
Right.
so many other things in negotiating that are important. And frankly, most of the time you can actually win a negotiation based on emotion and something other than price, as opposed to the price. If something is critically important to a strange story, you can't do this now. And make sure that everybody hears that you can't do this now. But I lost a sale back in California. I offered these people $50,000 more than the other offer they had. I called up the other agent. He said, well, we verbally accepted. Have you signed it? Great. I'll send you an offer. So I sent him an offer that's $50,000 higher. I see when it closes that they took $50,000 less, and I never even got a counter. I got nothing. Called him up. What happened? He said, well, the woman who got the property had grown up in that house. Her mother had just died. And so she was, very emotional. And they sent a picture of the family. You cannot send a picture of a family these days. Violates a whole bunch of rules. So don't do this. But it's a good illustration. The woman looked at the picture, and a little girl in the picture was the spitting image of her. She wanted that little girl to grow up in that house with all the happiness that she had growing up in that house. That emotional attachment was worth $50,000. And so, so many people think, oh, it's the price, it's the price. Well, price is important. But all of the other factors are important. And this is what I liked about meeting face-to-face, is you could find out everything that was important. Now, transition, we would, as we go along, remember fax machines? We sent things that way. Now we email them. Frequently,
I mean, how else could you go to cruise for $4.99 if you didn't have a fax machine to get those advertisements unsolicited? Right. Do you remember those? It was like every day.
Yeah, and they would burn up your expensive paper, with the stupid advertisements.
The ink was high.
Yeah. And so, but anyway, now you're getting to where it's less and less contact and less integration between the people. I get a lot of messages by text where they're trying to convey something. The communication, a certain percentage of it is words. But that is the least important thing. The most important thing is actually how you hold yourself and how you present yourself.
Right.
And how people can react to that. The other thing that's critically important is tone. Well, when you send a text, you don't have those other two critically important factors. And this is one of the things that unfortunately is being lost, but you deal with it. You just adapt to the new tools and you learn the new tools. And frankly, that's the thing that has recently fascinated me is the use of artificial intelligence or machine learning, whichever way you want to do it. I listened to some of your other podcasts talking about this being the tool of the devil. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was fun.
Well, I do think it is the tool of the devil, because I do think we're going to see a lot of bad uses of it. But as I also know, you got to keep your friends close and your enemies closer. So you still have to pay attention to it. And there are ways to utilize it. I just caution realtors to be very thoughtful about double checking behind the machine learning tools, because it doesn't always give you great information and it doesn't always give you what you need. I was listening to a very well-known national real estate speaker this past week talking about any realtor not using AI to write their listing descriptions is an idiot. And I'm thinking, no, we've sold houses for a long time and many of us know how to craft it based on what buyers want. And there's always ways to improve, but to use the broad brushing that everything old is wrong is a pretty poor way to look at any technology, because tools are tools and they shouldn't supplant the human. any different than we see what happens with text, because it does supplant the human when you can't, to your point, hear what they're trying to convey and pick up on the tension and the stresses and the excitement, which can help somebody make a decision, because it all goes back to, how do we get somebody else what they want?
Right.
And
Yep.
AI/machine learning can help people get what they want when used correctly. So I am curious about how it can help in the negotiation space. And we just talked about how tone and emotion matter.
Yeah, and frankly, let me touch on your other point of it. It hallucinates. You will come up. My favorite illustration of that is lawyers that don't really read their briefs after they've got AI and they submit it to the judge and they cite a case that doesn't exist.
And those are hilarious videos to watch them get busted for that.
Yeah. And now what I do frequently, I use a lot of different tools. ChatGPT, everybody knows about. I happen to like Claude a whole lot better. But what I'll do,
who?
Claude, CLAUDE.ai, much better at writing. And it also, frankly, it'll do programming. It'll create apps for you. But what I want to say is double check. Just like, you're talking to AI. Well, it makes mistakes. I talk to you. I'm going to make some mistakes. Everybody that we discuss with is not perfect, and they're going to make mistakes.
Right.
So your trick is to trust but verify. And so,
just like President Reagan said.
That's exactly where I got it. Another fine California. As a matter of fact, Ronald Reagan used to bring first-run movies to the school I went to. His kids.
Really?
Yes. And
you're older than I thought, Tim.
Oh, yes. And so Maureen Reagan went to my school, and he would drive down. He would, because who he was, he could get first-run movies. He would sit up in the balcony in the auditorium, thread the machine himself, run the projector, and we got to watch first-run movies courtesy of Ronald Reagan.
That is so cool.
Yeah. That was fun. Anyway, so back on this. Go ahead.
Anyway, trust but verify.
yeah. Go ahead and get your information, but Perplexity is particularly good at deep research. And you mentioned reading the actual information. So what you do is take something that you're going, this doesn't feel right. Trust your gut. Run it and stick that answer or stick the same question into Perplexity. Perplexity will actually give you the source material. So when it comes up with a whole bunch of things that it's talking about, you can click on the source material. You can read exactly what it read to come to that conclusion. On occasion, it will come to the wrong conclusion. But if you get to go back right to the source and check with them before you let it out, and this on a different podcast, you really had a great point. We are still responsible. We are still the agents, and the broker in charge also is responsible. So don't send this stuff out without putting your own touch on it, without double checking. To answer your primary question before I diverted this, I'm sorry, I should focus better.
It's how we roll.
Yeah. One of the biggest things in negotiation is to prepare. You need to know who you're talking to. Best illustration on this one, and I don't know if this is a national commercial or just a regional one, but I loved it, where you've got a family getting together to watch a UNC Chapel Hill game. They're all out in the UNC garb. It's everything just a nice Carolina blue, and they're getting ready to watch this thing, and this young lady's new boyfriend is going to come watch too. And he shows up at the front door in a Duke jersey, and they literally throw him off the porch. Okay,
which was the right choice, by the way. And I think that's an Allstate ad, because that's hilarious and perfectly on point with knowing your audience.
Yeah, and this is what many realtors do, is you don't know who you're talking to. So before you do anything, go in and do a quick little look at who is this? What are their values? What's important? What are their things? Certain things that, don't talk about this with that person. They'll go ballistic. Or go ahead and talk about this. This is a very important value for them. As an example, I took a cute little super prompt, did something, sent it to you, and did a little research on you, even though you and I have known each other for decades. But that's one of the things that's incredibly easy to do. And take that, before you start interacting with somebody, figure out how not to spit on their shoes.
Okay, so here's my question on that, though. So Matt Walsh, who has a commentary and podcast, he did an episode that his staff wanted him to do where they had the AI version of Matt Walsh, and then he was talking to that version, because there's these new machine learning tools that can recreate you.
Yeah. Hey,
And
Jen will let you do that. It's
so
another
while
tool.
he's talking to the AI version of Matt Walsh, the fake version said it had 5 kids. Well, Matt has 6 kids.
Mhm.
So he's now arguing with the AI version of himself over
Yes.
how many kids he actually has. And I'm listening to that thinking, that's creepy on a whole nother level.
Yep.
But if I'm investigating a potential seller before I go to the house and the tools tell me this person has 3 kids, and so in my effort to be relatable and chill, I mentioned something about the 3 kids, like I looked at the family picture, there's a 4th kid. Wait a minute. Where'd this kid come from? How do you double check? Where do you know you've crossed a line? What's the best counsel on this, Tim?
Excellent question, because this is why AI is not going to replace realtors. And this is the biggest issue I hear when I teach these classes. I did one yesterday for the Residential Real Estate Council. We started off with, is AI going to replace realtors? And the answer is no, because just what you said. We're the ones with the empathy, with the understanding, with the ability to absorb information, with the ability to make good judgments. And like I said before, AI makes mistakes. We all do. And so take the stuff in there in terms of general big pictures of who this person is and learn a little bit of, get something. One of the things I like in negotiating is first connect, then convince. So
Mhm.
start out by finding something. Oh, your kid plays soccer too. Isn't that one of, were you with, things of that nature? Oh, you also root for Carolina, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you went to this school, anything of that nature to establish a little bit of rapport, because the truth flows a lot better when you're in rapport. If you're hostile and reacting much more difficultly, you're not going to get things across. The other factor is the level of negotiation degenerates to, I'm going to beat that bum if you get into a fight and a disagreement. And here we are, on certain transactions, it's the realtors that are the problems. And
Mm.
so here we are not interacting properly as collaborative people who are working together to solve this problem. We're going, oh, yeah, they want that. Well, I'm going to one up them, you know. And so this is, that's to me probably one of the best ways to use AI in negotiating. Find out what the other person is about. Now, you mentioned tone and some of the other things. You have some tools that can pick up the tone out of conversations and emails and things of that nature and give you some warnings, like saying that this is starting to go south. They're getting angry. Sybil, there's another one called perceptivity. Things of this nature can do that. I don't use them that much. I can pick up the tone.
Right.
I don't need somebody to tell me what the other person's thinking. And the other problem with this is a lot of people get distracted by AI. You need to be present, talking to the person, listening, actively listening, then asking follow-up questions, probing the third question, finally getting to understand what their value is. But
Well, I love that you mentioned that's a tool you don't use, and the thing that immediately jumped to mind is that I used to know people's phone numbers. I could spit them back out, but the more I've used my phone and the contact manager and the saved profiles, I can't remember phone numbers anymore because I got too reliant on the tool.
yeah,
And so when you mention something that's going to start reading tone for you, y'all as professionals need to ask yourself, am I blunting my own skills by relying on something that I didn't even need? Knowing there's other tools out there that can make you stronger, some of them might make you weaker. So it's a good thing to think about. But I got
yeah,
to ask one more question before I forget. So we learn things about people, we get information, and you're talking about the building of rapport and being relational. But sometimes there's topics that you shouldn't bring up,
yep,
but you didn't know in advance. And the image that comes to mind, one of my favorite TV programs is The Office. And in one of the seasons, I think it was season 6 or 7, it's before Steve Carell leaves the show. No, it's season 5 when they have the Michael Scott Paper Company, and Dwight and Michael are fighting over a client. Dwight finds the client card of Michael's that has the details written down, but he doesn't know that what was written down was Michael's code for what not to talk about. And so he brings up the opposite of the right information. And so knowing that when you're in a relational communication business, you can fall into a trap quickly. You can step on a mine that you thought was a flower, what is your what do you do personally when you're doing the research and laying aside the perceptivity and these other tools? How are you discerning what you should and shouldn't use as a talking point? How do you tell people to know where to go? Because I think less for our generation and more for the Gen Z realtors and the millennial realtors who are not as comfortable with telephone conversations and face to face. They've had to stretch because their generation got less of it. Where do they start to know where the lines are?
And this is where you have to trust your gut, because you read this stuff and you have a level of certainty that you're dealing with. And so when you're reading down certain things, and for example, on the one I sent to you, it tells me, you've been in certain situation with the National Association of Realtors, with the state organization, with things of that nature. I look at that and I know that that has got to be right, because that's very simple for it to pick up. When it gets into, off in the weeds, a little nuanced material, that's more dangerous. And so what you do is you look down your list and see, okay, which things here can I interrelate with? Which things here feel certain? And if I want to use something that, oh man, well, this could be great. We could really establish a rapport. But if it's dangerous, you better check that out 16 times. Look at that picture and see that fourth kid before you start talking about their three kids. So yeah, to a certain extent, I think you're exactly right. You take some of this stuff and use your experience, use your gut, see what you feel can be no way that they got that wrong.
Right. So I guess you can talk about things that you could easily double check and verify.
Yep.
And stay on the path of the very logical things and less on the emotive things, and let the client bring the emotive things into the conversation. Maybe that's a good rule of thumb.
Exactly. And, let them lead. And then once you find out that they're comfortable with this, then great, go down that way. If you show up again with the Duke jersey at UNC, wrong. But if he'd shown up with a white shirt, he would have been okay.
Well, until he opened his mouth and used that condescending tone that Duke people use, because they give themselves away very quickly. And Duke people, you know this. Okay, so you've mentioned that you're using this super prompt. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about what the tool is? Does it cost any money? How did you come to find out about it? And have you used it in your day-to-day business?
Basic prompting is the key ingredient for using AI. It's what you ask and what you tell it. What I've developed is 7 steps for a super prompt, and how you walk your way through the different things that you tell it what its role is. After that, you tell it what its task is going to be. Your role. Oh, you are the greatest expert on real estate marketing. Your task is, I want you to do some research on this particular property. Your context, I'm going to be using this to try and present to them some information about the value of their house. Constraints, don't look up anything that is confidential information, and don't give me anything that violates any code of ethics.
Or fair housing.
Examples, do this just like the one we did last week. Variations, but give me 3 different alternatives for what the valuation of this price would be based upon certain ingredients, and then feedback. Once it spits something out at you, take a look at it. One of my most frequent responses is going back to Claude and saying, nice answer. That's about a 6 out of 10. What do I need to tell you to get a 10 out of 10? What do you need to have in addition? So what I've developed is a very simple super prompt that I use regularly before I meet with somebody, and then just put the thing in there, and then see what comes out in terms of information. But anybody can do a super prompt if you follow those steps that I just did. However, AI is really good on shortcuts, right? You want to take the shortcut? You go to promptcowboy.ai. Promptcowboy.ai.
That's a fun name.
Yeah, you stick in a very simple prompt, and it'll come out with a super prompt. So then if you're sitting here thinking, oh, how do I tell this, or how do I get this, or just go in there, put it in there. It'll spit out the super prompt, copy, paste, go in there. But then once you get the response, the real thing in AI is not to just take the first answer. AI is just like people. They're going to give you the easiest and simplest and shortest route. And so their first response probably isn't their best. And so push them a little bit and say, here, but what else didn't you tell me about this? How can we do this? Where can I tune this up? What did you look at? One of the other things that you mentioned in some other discussions is you can get AI to develop some of your marketing materials, even though you can do better, and you can have it, be in your own tone. What I do is I tell it to read my books, and I write them myself. And so read this book, and then when you give me an output, make it sound like me. And very similar things. Anybody can do that, as long as you've got any kind of material anywhere, or you can go ahead and write in some stuff so it'll sound like you. So, let's say you want to, have it help you draft emails, draft social media presentations, draft things of this nature. And draft is the key word, just like you were talking about before. It'll have something in there that's just not quite right. And so, but it'll start you off. It'll save you a whole lot of time. Then go in and edit, and then, stack it up into your social media generator and go ahead and let it go.
And I'm just going to say, for all y'all out there who have not been listening to me for the last 15 years, telling you to do video, had you done video all along, AI would know what your voice sounds like. That's the reason when I do ask AI to take something I've written and streamline it a little bit, because I get very wordy. And yes, I like to use it for some edits. It still sounds like me because my chat stuff knows my voice because it's got plenty of examples. But the good news is it can't replace me because it doesn't have this or this. So remember that what you put out there can be helpful as long as you don't assume it's all good to go the minute it gets spit out. I love that question you're asking, Claude, of if this is a 6 out of 10, how do I help you get to a 10? That's good direction giving, which is also what we do with buyers and sellers. And so maybe if y'all will treat your AI tools like you treat a seller suspect or a buyer suspect, you will get better results out of it. So, Tim, if they want to find out more about this super prompt and how to get your guidance for writing better prompts, what's the best way for them to reach out to you and see what you have to offer?
Frankly, just to make their life easy, send me an email to tim@timburrell.com. That's got 2 R's and 2 L's. In the subject line, put the word super prompt so that my system will know what you're looking for. I'll send you the super prompt, and then that'll start you off. If you do want to get into this even more, I've written a book recently that is the AI Negotiator. It's about how to use negotiating in AI. Amazon has it. If you want to go to ainegotiator.ai, you can find it there. 2 real simple ways. But, if you want me to just help you out and you don't have to think of the super prompt, just take it. It's free. We'll send it to you and you can use that before your next negotiations. Remember, trust but verify. Look at the things that you know that are accurate and look at some of the stuff and I don't know about that. Maybe I'm not going to bring that up.
And just remember, y'all, that you're the one with the power here. Don't give it all away to these tools, which is how we got our real estate space into a mess. We gave everything to all the portals, and now the portals are flexing their muscles to the detriment of our profession. So think about AI in that way. It can be helpful, it can be useful, but don't let it supplant what you bring to that table, which is this. So all of Tim's links, the book, all of the information is in the show notes for this episode. So if you just go to show notes, you can click to your heart's delight and gather some information or reach out to him. And I'm guessing you're teaching classes. So if their brokerage or association want to bring you in for this topic, I'm guessing you're available for that.
Be tickle pink, although vast majority of mine actually use technology. Mine are recorded classes, and you can find them and look at it at 2 a.m. If you haven't done your continuing education, I had one guy sign up at midnight the day before
of course.
When the stuff was due, and then managed to pass all of the stuff, and he got credit just before the deadline. So, but it's a fun world when you're dealing with the public.
Well, don't be like that guy, y'all. Get your CE done right now because it's better to have your continuing education early in the cycle so that you are a better version of yourself. Tim, thank you so much for coming back on the show and for giving us some new ways to think about a way to look at AI in a helpful manner and ways to make it more useful as we continue to collaborate and communicate for our clients. I really appreciate you what you're doing.
Fabulous. Really enjoyed it. Great to see you, Leigh.
All right, friends, go to the show notes right here in the comments. Say something nice about Tim, or you can make a comment about his hat too if you want to. Most importantly, hit the bell to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Now listen, if you loved what you heard, go ahead and click the subscribe button, hit the bell if you're on YouTube, follow on that favorite podcast app, and pretty please leave me a 5-star review, not just for me, although I do totally love the affirmation, but because it helps other people find the truth behind the real estate curtain too. And hey, if you've got a wild story of your own or something burning you want to learn about in real estate, you can slide into my DMs, as the young folks say, or shoot me a message. Maybe you can be the next guest on Real Talk with Leigh Brown. If you keep showing up, I'll keep bringing the chaos, the coaching, and the crazy stuff we all love in real estate. I'll see you next time, friends. And remember, real estate ain't always pretty, but it's never boring.